Menstrual cycle does not equal balance. If you don't believe it, I can parade you in a bunch of 30-year-old women who have menstrual cycles every month, and they got endometriosis and PMS and everything. Okay? So menstrual cycles don't equal balance. All right? But anyway, if you don't get pregnant, then this fertilized egg does not implant. So what happens is all this tissue that was there sheds. And because this is a cycle, estrogen is dominant the first 2 weeks, and estrogen stimulates growth. So here's the estrogen curve, stimulates growth, and then on day 14, you're supposed to ovulate. If you ovulate, which is a very delicate process, just like trying to get my son to develop, ovulation is a very delicate process. Sometimes you succeed, sometimes you don't. If you do ovulate, then what is remaining is the corpus luteum, and the corpus luteum makes progesterone. That's that blue line. And progesterone slows growth. You had this rate of growth. Now you have this rate of growth, and it increases development and differentiation. So you have these arcuate vessels that differentiate. If you get pregnant, progesterone continues to rise, and progesterone is called progesterone because it promotes gestation, so it's around to promote that gestation. And if you don't get pregnant, the corpus luteum goes away, the support for the endometrium goes away, and you have another menstrual cycle. Okay? So growth followed by development. Now these are all hormones. And Spiro says that a hormone is a substance that is produced in a special tissue where it's released into the bloodstream. Now I want you to take note of this, that if it is released from the special tissue, it goes in the bloodstream. If it's not released from the special tissue, it might not go in the bloodstream. Okay? And travels to a distant responsive cells in which the hormone exerts its characteristic effect. The characteristic effect of estrogen is what? Growth. The characteristic effect of progesterone is what? Development. Anywhere it goes, it's going to exert its characteristic effect. If it goes to the uterus, it goes to the breast, or wherever, it's going to exert its characteristic effect. Now, this is page 33 of Spiro. This is hormone biosynthesis. I don't want you to get your eyes crossed. This is to make a point. Okay? Now, this is biochemistry, organic chemistry. Organic chemistry is the study of carbons, hydrogens, and oxygens, correct? Yes. Okay? Now, let me ask you something. This carbon right here, right there, where does that carbon come from? It's a trick question. It's an essential element. It just is, carbon was here when we got here. Okay? So it doesn't matter where the carbon came from. What matters is the configuration of these carbons, hydrogens, and oxygens, correct? If they're configured like this, it's called progesterone. If they're configured like this, it's estrone. If they're configured like this, it's DHEA. So it's the configuration of carbons, hydrogens, and oxygens. Okay, now, if I go to Post-Haste Pharmacy and I say, Dr. Fishman, do you have some carbons, hydrogens, and oxygens that are configured just like that? And Dr. Fishman would say, as a matter of fact, I do. It's right here. I got it back here. And I said, well, Dr. Fishman, if you have carbons, hydrogens, and oxygens configured like that, what do you call that? He says, well, I call it progesterone. I said, why in the world would you do that? Because it's identical to what the body calls, what we call it in the body is progesterone. It's configured just like that. Okay? Now, if he has a hormone in his pharmacy that is identical to what is in my biosynthesis, you could call that bio. Would that be poor nomenclature? Biosynthesis identical to it. So you call it bio-identical. Okay? Now, in the OBGYN peer-reviewed journals, the word bioidentical is always preceded by two other words. You know what those two other words are? So-called bioidentical. If I have carbons, hydrogens, and oxygens that are configured like that, and they're identical to that, why is it called so-called? If you have two hydrogens and an oxygen, it's called what? But suppose I get the two hydrogens and oxygens from Kroger. What do you call it? So-called. You call it so-called water. Yeah, you call it so-called water. Is that not chemistry or is that not chemistry? It's not so-called if the configuration is the same. Correct? Okay? And then our leaders in peer-reviewed journals, they say they don't believe in bioidentical hormones. They don't believe in bioidentical hormones. Let me ask you something. If you don't believe that a sodium-potassium pump is involved in your heart beating, is your heart going to stop beating right now?
Nope.
Let me ask you this. If you don't believe in the citric acid cycle, will it stop working? Well, let's all do an experiment here. Let's hold hands and let's say 3 times, I don't believe in the Krebs cycle. Let's just say, come on. I don't believe in the Krebs cycle. I don't believe in the Krebs cycle. I don't believe in the Krebs. All right, we should die. If we stop making ATP, we should all be dead. See, for an expert who's supposed to be my Caterpillar leader to say they don't believe in a biochemical process, that makes me not want to be involved with those leaders.
Right.
If you don't believe in physiology, I can't hang with you. See,